My name is Jessica Torres. I'm 28 years old, and I work as a correctional officer. I've only been doing this job for 3 years, but 3 years is more than enough to learn one truth. They are inmates, but they are still people. People with fears, regrets, anger, and sometimes hope. If you want to hear the real stories from behind these walls, the ones most people never talk about, subscribe to this channel. These are the stories I lived, and this is where I tell them. The note was small, folded tight, and tucked under my coffee cup in the break room. When I opened it, my hands started shaking. Back off, Officer Torres. 48 hours. Or your little sister learns what happens to snitches. I'm Jessica Torres. I've been a correctional officer at Riverside Prison for 3 years, and I thought I'd seen everything. I was wrong. Let me back up. 2 weeks before that note appeared, I was doing my usual rounds on C Block. It was a Tuesday morning, nothing special. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting that sickly yellow glow that made everyone look half dead. I was checking cells, counting heads, going through the motions. That's when I noticed something off about cell 23. Maria Gonzalez had been an inmate at Riverside for 8 months. Mid-30s, in for drug trafficking, kept to herself mostly. Good behavior, no incidents. But that morning, when I looked through the small window in her cell door, she was sitting on her bunk, completely still, staring at the wall. Her left eye was swollen shut, a deep purple bruise spreading across her cheekbone. Gonzalez, I called through the door. You okay? She didn't move, didn't even blink. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. Maria, look at me. Finally, she turned her head. The fear in her one good, I made my stomach drop. I fell, she said quietly, slipped in the shower. I'd heard that line 100 times. It was never true. That's not what happened. Yes, it is. Her voice was flat, rehearsed. I crouched down to her eye level. Maria, you can talk to me. If someone hurt you, nobody hurt me. She cut me off, her voice suddenly sharp. I fell. Write it up however you want, Officer Torres. But that's what happened. I wanted to push harder, but I could see the terror behind her defiance. Whoever did this, she was more scared of them than of lying to me. I filed an incident report anyway, noting my suspicions. That was my job. That was also my first mistake. The next day, things got worse. I found Maria in the common area during rec time, sitting alone at a table. She wasn't reading or playing cards like usual. She was just sitting there, hands folded, eyes down. And surrounding her, like sharks circling prey, were 3 women I recognized immediately. Leticia, Letty Reyes, was the shot caller for Los Serpientes, one of the most powerful prison gangs in California's correctional system. Early 40s, serving 25 to life for multiple counts, including murder. She had cold eyes and a smile that never reached them. Standing behind her were her 2 enforcers, Rosa, built like a truck with arms covered in snake tattoos, and Karina, younger but meaner, with a scar running from her ear to her jaw. I moved closer, trying to look casual. Letty was speaking to Maria in rapid Spanish, low enough that I couldn't make out the words from where I stood. But I caught Maria's response. No puedo. Por favor, no puedo. I can't. Please, I can't. Letty leaned in closer, still smiling that cold smile. Entonces tu familia paga. Then your family pays. My blood went cold. I knew what this was. Extortion, probably. Los Serpientes ran everything from drug distribution to protection rackets, and they had connections on the outside that made their threats very real. If Maria had family in LA, especially in the wrong neighborhood, they were vulnerable. I stepped forward. Reyes, back to your table. Gonzalez, you're coming with me. Letty looked up at me slowly, that smile still plastered on her face. Just having a conversation. Officer Torres. That's not against the rules, is it? Move. Now. She stood up, hands raised in mock surrender. Whatever you say, boss. As she walked past me, she whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "Careful, Torres. Some conversations are dangerous to interrupt." I took Maria to the medical unit, got her eye documented properly, and tried again to get her to talk. She wouldn't, but before I left her there, she grabbed my wrist. "Officer Torres," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "don't make this worse for me. Please, just let it go." But I couldn't let it go. I'd grown up in East LA, watched gangs terrorize my neighborhood, seen good people ground down by fear. I became a correctional officer because I wanted to change things from inside the system. If I looked away now, what was the point? I went to my supervisor, Officer Davis, a 20-year veteran with gray hair and tired eyes. I told him everything I'd seen and heard. He listened, nodding, making notes. When I finished, he sighed. "Torres, I appreciate your vigilance, but Reyes is smart. She never does anything we can prove, and Gonzalez isn't going to testify against her. So we just let it happen." I'm not saying that. I'm saying be careful. Las Serpientes have a long reach. Document everything, watch for violations we can actually act on, but don't make yourself a target. I should have listened to him. Instead, I spent the next week watching Las Serpientes like a hawk. I disrupted their card games, searched their cells more frequently, separated them during rec time whenever vasgactum promptan eri berkonu yazik mesela item edelmedin once sun istigi 22:17 video title. Death Row Inmate's final request made me question everything. Thumbnail scene description. Jessica standing in a dimly lit death row corridor, her face illuminated by harsh overhead lights showing tears in her eyes. Behind her, a heavy steel door with a small window. Her hand is pressed against her chest, expression mixing grief and moral conflict. Full story script. They told me I had 48 hours to fulfill her last request. 48 hours before Sarah Mitchell would be executed. I'm Jessica Torres, a correctional officer at Riverside Prison, and this is the story that still haunts me 3 years later. I never expected to work death row. When I transferred to the special housing unit 6 months ago, I thought I was ready. I'd dealt with violent offenders, gang members, women who'd committed unspeakable crimes. But nothing prepares you for death row. Nothing prepares you for watching someone count down their final days. Sarah Mitchell was 34 years old. Blonde hair that had started showing gray, pale blue eyes that seemed too tired for her age. She'd been on death row for 9 years, convicted of murdering her husband and his business partner. The case had been all over the news back then. The Black Widow of Orange County, they called her. Rich husband, secret lover, insurance money. The prosecution painted her as a cold-blooded killer who'd planned everything down to the last detail. I first met Sarah on a regular morning shift. Death row was quieter than general population, heavier somehow. The air felt thicker, like the walls absorbed all the hope and breath out of the place. I was doing cell checks when I reached hers. "Good morning, Officer Torres." Her voice was soft, polite. Not what I expected. "Morning, Mitchell." I glanced through the small window. She was sitting on her bunk, reading a book. "Everything okay?" "As okay as it can be, I suppose." She looked up and gave me a sad smile. "Thank you for asking, though. Not everyone does." Over the next few months, I saw Sarah almost every day. She never caused trouble, never complained, always said good morning and good night. We'd exchange a few words here and there. She told me about the books she was reading, mostly classics. Jane Austen, the Bronte sisters, Tolstoy. She said they helped her escape, even if just for a few hours. "Do you have family on the outside?" I asked her one day. Her face darkened. "A daughter." Emma, she's 14 now. Does she visit? No. Sarah's voice cracked slightly. My sister won't let her. She thinks I'm a monster. Maybe she's right. I didn't know what to say to that. In this job, you learn not to ask too many questions about guilt or innocence. The courts decided that already your job is just to keep them alive until the state decides otherwise. But something about Sarah bothered me. I couldn't put my finger on it. She didn't fit the profile of the other death row inmates I'd encountered. There was a sadness in her that felt different from resignation or remorse. It felt like defeat. 3 months into my assignment, Sarah's execution date was set. November 15th, 45 days away. When I delivered the notification to her cell, her hands trembled as she read the paper. So it's really happening, she whispered. I'm sorry. And I meant it. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. Officer Torres, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think people can be wrongly convicted? I mean, truly innocent people. The question caught me off guard. I think the system tries its best. That's not what I asked. I met her eyes. Yes, I think it's possible. She nodded slowly, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. Thank you for your honesty. Over the next weeks, I watched Sarah prepare for death. She gave away her belongings, wrote letters, spent hours in prayer. But she also became more withdrawn, more hollow. The light in her eyes was fading faster than her remaining days. 2 days before the execution, the warden called me into his office. Warden Roberts was a stern man, military background, didn't waste words. Torres, Mitchell has made her final request. She wants to speak with you. Me? Why me? She didn't say, but she has the right to make reasonable requests in her final 48 hours. Will you talk to her? I felt a knot forming in my stomach. Yes, sir. They took me to a private visiting room, not the usual death row setup. Sarah was already there, sitting at a small table, her hands folded. She looked so small, so fragile. When I entered, she stood up. Officer Torres, thank you for coming. Of course. I sat down across from her. What did you want to talk about? Sarah took a deep breath. I need to tell someone the truth before I die. And I think you're the only person who might actually listen. Sarah, I didn't kill my husband. Her voice was steady now, clear. I didn't kill anyone. I'd heard this before from inmates. Denials, claims of innocence, conspiracy theories. But something in her voice made me pause. The evidence I started was circumstantial and manipulated. She leaned forward. My husband's business partner, Marcus Reed, was the one who killed him. They were involved in money laundering, embezzlement. David wanted out. Marcus couldn't let that happen. Why would they convict you? Because Marcus framed me perfectly. The affair, he claimed we were having, lies, backed up by doctored emails and testimony from people he paid off. The life insurance. David had just increased it because we had a daughter, and he wanted us protected. Everything looked damning, but it was all a setup. My heart was racing. Did you tell your lawyers this? Of course I did. But Marcus was smart. He covered his tracks. My lawyer said we couldn't prove it, that going with that defense would make me look desperate. So we tried to claim self-defense instead, said David was abusive. But there was no evidence of that either, because it never happened. The jury didn't believe me. How could they? Every piece of evidence pointed to premeditated murder. Sarah, if this is true, why didn't you keep fighting? Tears rolled down her cheeks. I did, for years. Appeal after appeal. But the system doesn't want to admit when it's wrong. And every year that passed, my daughter grew up without me. My sister poisoned her against me. Emma thinks her mother is a murderer. That's the legacy I'm leaving her. I sat back, my mind reeling. What's your final request, Sarah? She reached into her pocket and pulled out a worn envelope. This letter. It's for Emma. It tells her the truth, tells her I love her, tells her to be strong and kind, and to never let anyone make her believe she's anything less than extraordinary. My sister won't give it to her. She'll destroy it. So you want me to? After I'm gone, when enough time has passed, when Emma is 18 and can make her own choices, I want you to find her and give her this letter. Let her know that her mother loved her until the very last second. That's all I want. That's my final request. My hands shook as I took the envelope. Sarah, I know it's a lot to ask. You don't owe me anything, but you're the only person who's treated me like a human being in 9 years. Please, for my daughter. I looked at the envelope, then back at Sarah's desperate eyes. I'll do it. I promise. Relief washed over her face. Thank you. Thank you so much. Sarah, is there anything else? Anything that could help prove your innocence? She smiled sadly. It's too late for that. But there is something you should know. Marcus Reed is still out there. Still free. Still rich. And I'll die knowing he got away with murder while I pay for his crime. That's the justice system we have. The next 48 hours were the longest of my life. I carried that letter with me, tucked inside my uniform pocket, feeling its weight every second. I researched Sarah's case online, reading through old news articles, court documents. The more I read, the more questions I had. On the morning of November 15th, I was assigned to Death Watch. I had to stay with Sarah in her final hours. We didn't talk much. She was calm, eerily so. She'd made her peace, she said. Officer Torres, she said as they came to prepare her. Remember your promise. I won't forget. They led her away. I stood in that corridor, listening to the echoes of footsteps fade. At 12:01 a.m. on November 16th, Sarah Mitchell was pronounced dead. I wasn't in the execution chamber, but I felt it happen. Something in the air shifted. That was 3 years ago. I left death row 6 months later. Couldn't handle it anymore. But I kept that letter. I researched Emma Mitchell, tracked her through social media, watched her grow from a distance. She's 17 now, about to turn 18. Last week, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I started digging into Marcus Reed's financials, his business dealings. I'm not a detective, and I have no authority, but I couldn't let it go. And I found something. Transfers to witnesses from Sarah's trial, hidden through shell companies. Emails that suggested he knew details about David Mitchell's murder that were never made public. It's not enough to reopen the case. Sarah is already gone. But it's something. And when I give Emma that letter next year, I'm going to give her this information too. Maybe she can do what her mother couldn't. Maybe she can find real justice. I think about Sarah every day, about her final request, about whether she was telling the truth, about whether the system failed her. I don't have answers, but I have a promise to keep. People ask me sometimes if I believe in the death penalty. I used to think it was simple. Bad people do bad things. They pay the price. But after Sarah, I don't know anymore. What if we're wrong? What if we execute innocent people and call it justice? Sarah's last words to me were, "Tell Emma I loved her." That's all that matters now. In 3 months, Emma turns 18. I'll find her, give her the letter, tell her about her mother's final days. I'll show her what I found about Marcus Reed, and then I'll let her decide what to do with the truth. I've learned something working in this system. Justice isn't always about what happens in a courtroom. Sometimes it's about keeping promises to the powerless. Sometimes it's about making sure that even in death, a mother's love reaches her daughter. I'm Jessica Torres. I'm not on death row anymore, but that experience changed me forever. and I'm going to make sure Sarah Mitchell's voice is finally heard. This story taught me that the system we trust to deliver justice is run by fallible people. We can't afford to be so certain about life and death. If this touched you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Next week, I'll tell you about the inmate who saved my life during a riot. You won't believe how it happened.